When I was being pushed to propose to James, I happened to glance at his group chat. He had said if she dares bring up marriage, I'll dump her on the spot. I blinked, feeling strangely calm yet amused. Every one of James's ex-girlfriends had received a generous breakup payout. After 3 years, it was finally my turn. In the 3rd year of our relationship, my mom suddenly called to press me about marriage. "Mary," she asked directly, "when are you and James planning to get married?" I frowned, already feeling fed up. "James hasn't proposed yet," I replied. My mom didn't back down. "If he won't propose, then why can't you do it first? You're nearly 28. What you should be doing is marrying James while you still can. No career can compare to marrying a good husband." Back when I was sick, if James hadn't found the right doctor for my surgery, I might not have survived. And your father's company, if it weren't for James, it would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. A man like him is a rare find. You must not miss this opportunity. A woman should know when to take initiative. After hanging up, I sat on the couch in a daze for a long time, until James came through the door and suddenly wrapped his strong arms around my waist, snapping me out of it. When I looked up, that handsome face, that once made me fall head over heels, slowly came closer. As his well-defined lips brushed against mine, and our breaths mingled, I caught a whiff of a luxurious rose scent that didn't belong to him. It was the 3rd day in a row I'd smelled it on him. Yet earlier that morning, before he left for work, his body had still carried the clean scent of gardenias. As I collapsed back onto the sofa, the thought lingered in my mind. James leaned close to my ear, his voice hoarse with desire. Was the kiss not deep enough? What were you so lost in thought about? I didn't want to deal with him, so I closed my eyes and said nothing. When he tried to go further, I stopped his hand. I'm on my period. My cycle had always been regular. But naturally, James didn't care to remember. He frowned and grunted, then stood up without another word. A moment later, I heard the sound of water running from the bathroom sink. I tugged my collar back into place and let out a slow breath. My gaze drifted around the room until it landed on the phone James had left on the couch. Just then the screen lit up with a message. I picked it up. It was from someone in his group chat tagging him. "If you're going to break up, at least say something." I kind of like this type. My heart skipped a beat, while keeping an ear out for the sound of water. From the bathroom, I opened the chat. One message: "James, what you suddenly switched teams? You've been with this girl for 3 years. Another chimed in. "Looks like he's thinking of settling down and getting married." James had replied, "Marry her? No way. I never had that thought. To me, she's just a way to pass the time." Someone responded, "You might not care, but who says she doesn't?" James wrote, "If she ever dares mention marriage, I'll dump her on the spot." The screen was filled with ha 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 after that, followed by the message that had just popped up. I blinked and the irritation in my heart faded, replaced by a strange sense of anticipation. They said every woman James had broken up with walked away with a massive settlement. My mom was right. Sometimes a woman does need to take the lead. I figured it was time to propose to James myself. As for why I started dating him in the first place, it was simply because I was too much of a bootlicker. 3 years ago, my senior and I co-founded a game development studio, and James was one of the investors she brought in at the early stages of the company. Both of us bent over backward to please our investors. I was slightly better at reading the room than she was, so I ended up outdoing her in flattery. That's how James misunderstood and thought I had feelings for him. During one dinner, I drank on his behalf the entire night because he couldn't handle his liquor. On the ride back home while he was dropping us off, he suddenly said, "You've been chasing me this long without a response. Must be tiring, huh?" At the time, I was so dizzy from the alcohol, I couldn't even respond properly. That stunningly handsome face of his, unable to conceal the smug pride. No need to be shy. A lot of people like me, and even more are trying to date me. Right then, I realized James had completely misunderstood. I opened my mouth to explain, but before I could say anything, my senior, who had drunkenly collapsed on his shoulder, reached over and pinched the soft flesh at my waist. The sharp pain reminded me of one important. James was our investor, so I kept quiet. When he parked in the underground garage of our apartment complex, he rested both hands on the steering wheel. His black hair fell casually over his forehead, and beneath those sharp brows were dark eyes that gave off an effortlessly cool vibe. Under the dim light of night, he let out a soft chuckle and advised me, "You know I've dated a lot of girls. And you also know there's someone I've always kept in my heart. I won't accept you, so give up." I didn't want to lose his investment, so I stayed silent. But that very silence instantly turned me from a cautious business partner in a drama into a pitiful girl chasing love in some cheesy rom-com. My senior wasn't wrong. Since James had already rejected me, I figured I might as well go all in, pretending I actually believed he had feelings for me. I kept flattering him, playing the role of a humble subordinate. Then one day James must have lost his mind. He suddenly announced that he accepted my confession. My senior waved it off, saying it was nothing. His longest relationship lasts 3 months at most. She reassured me. And all his exes got huge breakup checks. I thought about his ridiculously attractive face, those defined abs, that perfectly tapered waist, the massive breakup fees, and my parents constantly nagging me to go on blind dates. I'll admit I was tempted. Half reluctantly, I agreed to my senior's bad idea. And yet it's been 3 years. My mom is already urging me to get married. But James still hasn't dumped me, and he hasn't cheated. At least not in any concrete way. Even that so-called white moonlight of his, rumored to be in Germany, still hasn't shown up. To be fair, over these 3 years, aside from not loving me, James has done a decent job as a boyfriend. In bed, he's enthusiastic. Outside of bed, he's presentable. When my mom got sick and couldn't get a hospital bed, he made one call and settled it all. When my dad's company was on the brink of collapse, James stepped in and invested. Everyone around me kept praising him, saying he was worth all the years I'd spent chasing him. And they hoped I'd eventually marry him, even if he couldn't draw clear boundaries between men and women, even if he was completely flawed in love. But they were all going to be disappointed, because once I proposed, James would definitely dump me. I'd be left crying, heartbroken, clinging to my massive breakup compensation. After he fell asleep, I pulled out my phone and opened the shopping app. My bank account had close to 8 figures in savings, but I still couldn't bring myself to buy that $99 ring as I hesitated. Memories of James bad-mouthing me in his group chat, and the scent of some strange woman's perfume on him, came flooding back. I immediately closed the app and opened a cheaper one. After carefully browsing, I picked out a 99-cent ring. Only then was I finally satisfied enough to sleep. I set the proposal date for James's birthday. I decorated his beachside villa for the party. To make the proposal as perfect as possible, I secretly notified every single one of his friends. The invitation read, "Join us this Saturday for James's birthday party and witness us tying the knot." Not long after I sent it out, a wave of question marks flooded in. I picked the biggest gossip among his friends and, "Yes, I'm planning to propose to James at the party. Please help me keep it a surprise." Of course, the Gossip King lived up to his title. On the night before his birthday, James kept giving me these complex looks. He hovered around all evening, clearly trying to find an opening to say something. I knew exactly what he wanted, to nudge me into asking what was on his mind, so he could casually bring up how he wasn't thinking about marriage. But I couldn't let him lead the conversation. So I tiptoed up and kissed him on the cheek playfully. "Babe, do you feel the love tonight?" James stiffened. For the first time, the man who never rejected my advances actually pushed me away. Didn't you say you were really tired lately? I nodded, forcing a disappointed expression. All right then, I'll sleep first. I lifted the blanket, tucked myself in, and quickly closed my eyes. About 10 minutes later, I heard some soft rustling in the room. I quietly opened my eyes. James was bent over my vanity, rummaging through my things. After a few minutes, he picked up his phone and left the bedroom. I got out of bed and tiptoed to the door. James was sitting in the living room, on the phone with someone. I couldn't find the ring at home, he said. Are you sure she's really planning to propose tomorrow? I couldn't hear what the other person said, but James's frustration was visible, even from a distance. If she really dares to push me into marriage, in front of everyone, I'll break up with her right then and there. Let her embarrass herself in front of the whole crowd. Hearing that, I turned back to bed and lay down in comfort. Saturday arrived. I opened the package, delivered by the building concierge, took out the ring, and drove straight to the beachside villa. No flowers, no gifts, just a sincere heart, ready to celebrate James's birthday. That night the party was packed. Everyone who knew the inside story looked at me, strangely with pity, with contempt, and with that unmistakable amusement of people watching a drama unfold. All eyes were locked on me. James's too. Only his gaze was tinged with hesitation and reluctance. When the 8-tiered birthday cake was rolled out, I lit the candles and smiled at him. Happy birthday, babe. Make a wish. James glanced at me, his expression conflicted. He blew out the candles in one breath and muttered, just making it through the night peacefully would be my greatest wish. Too bad that wish was never gonna come true. In the next second, I got down on one knee in front of him, with deep emotion in my voice. I said, James, the first love you. Let's get married. Gaspies echoed around the room. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw those so-called friends give each other knowing looks, like they'd expected this outcome all along. James stood frozen, his face stiff. No one cheered. No one urged him to say yes. All I heard was ridicule and mocking laughter. I forced an awkward smile and glanced at James, silently pleading with him to help me out. But James didn't care about me, and naturally he didn't care to defend me. After a long silence, he gave a faint smile. Before we started dating, I told you I already had someone I liked. I know, I said quickly. But you grew to like me, didn't you? Otherwise, why would we be together for 3 years? I think it's time for us to get married. James had never once said he loved me, and sure enough, he didn't disappoint. He denied it flat out. I thought you understood we were just having fun. I never had feelings for you. My face turned pale in an instant, but I could still make my fingers tremble, bite my lower lip, and speak with a choked voice. James, what are you saying? He shoved my hand aside, the one still holding the ring, and said coldly, I mean, you crossed the line. I never loved you. We're done. The ring hit the floor with a dull clink. I wiped my eyes, tears falling in humiliation. I stubbornly stared at him, eyes wide, silently begging him not to treat me this way. But James simply turned his back to me, without the slightest emotion. Laughter erupted all around me. I couldn't take it anymore. I stumbled and ran out of the villa. The chili was too spicy. The tears wouldn't stop. What now, and how much was the breakup fee? Once the star of the proposal disaster ran off in tears, the party crowd began chatting freely. To be fair, someone said, James's girlfriend is actually pretty hot. Great figure too. No kidding, if she wasn't a stunner. How could she last 3 years with James? Too bad her luck ran out. Another said she proposed right when she came back. She, the one everyone knew as James's white moonlight. Now that the girl James had always carried in his heart had returned, of course he had to sever ties completely, lest she get the wrong idea. As the conversation continued, someone who had just gotten off a flight and rushed to the party, someone who'd harbored ill intentions for years, grinned and nudged James. I'm in need of a partner lately. You don't mind if I go after your ex, do you? James hadn't replied yet, The people around us burst into laughter. Sean, are you serious? What did you all think? I was just joking. In the group chat, Sean raised an eyebrow, clearly enjoying himself. Then he turned to James with a faint smile. I assume you don't mind, right? After all, the one you truly care about came back 3 days ago. Following Sean's gaze, Zoe appeared at the party, in a fiery red dress that swayed with every step. The room instantly fell silent. Everyone who knew James's feelings turned to look at him. Under the dazzling party lights, she smiled radiantly and gracefully walked toward him. Happy birthday, James. James smiled and thanked her, but deep down the joy he'd imagined wasn't there. This whole breakup scene had been orchestrated for the girl he'd secretly loved for years. And yet all he could think about was the image of me, running out crying. His eyes accidentally brushed over Sean. And for a split second, something dark flickered across James's expression. An unexplainable frustration rose in his chest. He couldn't help but think, what if Sean really did go after me? But in the next moment he dismissed the idea. No way, I loved him too much. And that breakup was just a calculated move. Nothing real. Sean, completely unaware of what James was thinking, swirled his wine glass and stood in a corner, smiling as he watched the awkward couple from afar. In his mind, he was hoping James would stay with Zoe forever. That way, the 2 years he'd spent putting up with Dwayne, just to get close to James, wouldn't have been in vain. Yes, ever since seeing me again, Sean had made up his mind. He'd sacrifice that friendship with James. He wanted me for himself. I returned to the apartment James and I had shared, and started packing. The diamond necklace, definitely keeping it. That limited edition purse. No way, I'm leaving that behind. And the Protect Philippe watch, also mine. Some other girl, one of those pure, innocent sunshine types, might have left everything behind out of pride. But not me. I have a strong sense of self-worth. If you give it to me, it's mine. I'm taking it all. Once I was done packing, I dragged my suitcase toward the door, only to run straight into James. He was standing in the entryway, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on me. Shouldn't he be enjoying his party right now? My grip on the suitcase handle tightened. James's expression darkened. Where are you going? Business trip, I said calmly. You need this much luggage for a business trip? I stayed composed like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't rejected my proposal 2 hours ago, or announced to everyone that we were over. There's nothing to talk about, I said, dragging my suitcase past him. But just as I passed, James yanked the suitcase from my hand. I looked up at him, my voice polite and even. Is there something you want? James's chest rose and fell with a deep breath. Then his tone softened. I'm sorry about tonight, but I didn't mean for us to actually break up. Please don't be mad. I nearly lost control of my expression. So you're telling me you rejected my proposal in front of everyone, but you didn't mean to break up? I immediately realized what was going on. He didn't plan to give me the breakup fee. Why is it that everyone else who dated you for a month got paid, but I dated you for 3 years and get nothing? James's face twisted. Wait, you were with me for the money. Our relationship started because of a misunderstanding. But I'm not made of stone. I spent 3 years with you. Half a year ago, my parents called and suggested I visit his parents. James and I were at a restaurant when I told him. He didn't say a word. He just smiled in that usual teasing way of his. That was when I knew James had never loved me. And I wouldn't love someone who didn't love me back. So yeah, I fell in love with his money. Eyes red, I gave a bitter smile. What else did you expect? That you were going to marry me? A tear fell. I wiped my face harshly and spoke in a flat voice. 3 days ago, I started smelling a new rose perfume on you. Is she a new girl you met? The white moonlight you've always carried in your heart? Or maybe just a new employee at your company? When I mentioned his white moonlight, James's lashes trembled ever so slightly. So, it really was her. I let out a bitter smile, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the door. Breaking up is good. Now you've got room for your white moonlight. I'm the kind of person who leaves when I lose. So I'll go first. Just don't forget to transfer the breakup fee to my account. James took a deep breath and stepped in front of the door, blocking me. Today's breakup was just for show to let him see it. I never intended for you to leave. Everything between us should go back to normal. That was the first time I truly saw how shameless James could be. I let out a disbelieving laugh and slapped him hard across the face. You break up with me in front of everyone, just to turn around and expect me to be your mistress. Dream on, with my handprint still visible on his cheek. James's face darkened. Don't push your luck. Once you walk out that door, there's no coming back. He said it with fury in his voice, and then kicked my suitcase hard. The latch popped open, and all the gifts he'd ever given me spilled across the floor. Among them was a pair of little clay figurines. Last year, when we traveled together, we'd stopped in a small town. A street vendor had sculpted them based on us. Under the warm lights of the old night market, I'd pulled James, who looked uncomfortable, onto a worn wooden bench. The elderly man crafting the figures chuckled, saying, "What a lovely couple. You two match so well. Let me make you a pair of dolls. I'll bless you with a long-lasting love." His craftsmanship was decent, but his judgment wasn't. James and I were never going to last, and now those little clay dolls were shattered. Just like the relationship that had started out all wrong and ended in ruins. I should have let go long ago. I bent down and swept everything back into the suitcase. Everything except the broken clay dolls. After closing it, I looked up at James and said softly, "There's no going back. It's over." With a loud slam, James turned and stormed off, the door echoing behind him. I exhaled, finally feeling some relief, and sat down on the floor. After thinking for a bit, I called my senior. "Assign me to the S branch. I'm ready." "That means you and James are officially long distance now, huh?" She teased. "Well, we broke up, so I guess it's just me now." That very night, when I arrived in CDs, I got a text from the bank. James had transferred the breakup fee. 8 figures. Definitely a sky-high number. I counted the zeros behind the amount and laughed for a long time. Before I could laugh myself into a cramp, I opened my laptop and started researching how to be a qualified ex. According to the most upvoted answer on Jihu, the best way to move on was to treat yourself like a dead person. Cut off all contact with your ex. So I blocked James's number, deleted him on WeChat, and for good measure, unfollowed him on the short video app. Just after I unfollowed, the app pushed me a new video. In an extravagant villa, under dazzling lights, stood a handsome man in a black custom-made suit. He held a wine glass elegantly in one hand, the other tucked casually into his pocket, though the party around him was loud. He radiated a subtle, brooding intensity, even with that sullen look. His every move exuded luxury and indifference that made people want to get close. Right in the middle of all the noise, the crowd around him parted, and a girl in a stunning red dress walked confidently toward him. She smiled, said something I couldn't hear, and, for the first time in the video, the man's cold face broke into a faint smile. The video had been posted by one of James's friends. I instinctively glanced at the caption. "A golden couple, a match made in heaven." The tags: "Overcoming obstacles, reuniting after a long separation. Broken mirror made whole again." So, that was her. James's white moonlight, who had been living in Germany. The rose perfume I kept smelling must have been hers. Too like everyone else I tapped like. Then I left a single comment, 99. After that, bored and indifferent, I closed my phone. A momentary misunderstanding, that's all it had been. After 3 years of dating, I was calmer than I thought I'd be. Even though not long ago, James had seemed in everyone's eyes to really love me. He was distant, yes, but he would still pick me up and drop me off at work. He didn't like traveling, but If I ever said I wanted to go, he'd go with me. He wasn't into public displays of affection. But whenever I tried to kiss him, he'd lean down and kiss me first. When we first got together, I didn't feel much for him. Girls tend to fall for someone through time and companionship. A year later, when he treated me differently than he treated everyone else, I fell in love with him. I thought he would eventually fall for me too, just like I did with him. But he didn't. Luckily for me, I also really loved money. So, in the end, everything balanced out. I closed my eyes that night and had a peaceful dream. 7 days after Zoe returned to the country, she hosted a small gathering with friends. James went too. Zoe had always been the white moonlight he couldn't reach. Whenever she appeared, James would show up beside her. If she needed him, he'd always be there. Except for one time. That one time was at his birthday party, just a few days ago. That night, he had broken up with me right in front of Zoe. But after I left, James couldn't stay focused. He danced with Zoe. He was actually quite a good dancer. But that night, he kept stepping on her feet. So much so that at the end of the song, Zoe made up an excuse about work and left early. Driving down a familiar road that evening, James got a call from a friend. "Don't tell me you're regretting breaking up with Mary." James quickly denied it. "Of course not. The one I love is Zoe. Mary was just something to pass the time." But 3 years was enough time for me to leave an imprint on his heart. He felt reluctant. He thought maybe, after following him so long, I deserved a little more kindness. Maybe he could keep me somewhere, hidden away in a little apartment of his own, taken care of quietly. With that thought, he drove back to the apartment we had lived in together for nearly 3 years. He wanted to tell me the good news, that we didn't have to break up. Not really, but I had rejected him, and I had even asked for a breakup fee. James had looked distracted all night, and Zoe noticed. She reached over and held his hand resting on his knee, then smiled and brought up a previous topic. "James, they say the apartments at Grandview are really nice. Is that why you've been spending so much time there lately?" James thought about the place. An average shopping district nearby, landscaping that didn't match its price, and mediocre property management. Compared to other luxury apartments, he didn't even like it that much. The only reason he stayed there often was because I liked it. He nodded vaguely and Zoe smiled meaningfully. "I've been thinking of moving there too. Got any recommendations?" The group of friends started teasing what to recommend. "Just move in together." Zoe glanced shyly at James and didn't deny it, letting her move into the apartment I had once shared. With James, that thought unsettled him. He smiled softly at Zoe and said sure. But in his mind, he had already decided he'd ask his assistant to buy another unit in the same neighborhood, just for her after the party. James brought Zoe back to his place downtown. They tangled together in bed for a long time. Physically, James got what he wanted, but emotionally all he felt was emptiness. He missed me. He wondered if I regretted leaving him. At 3 a.m., James's longing for me reached its peak. He quietly slipped out of bed, leaving Zoe sleeping peacefully in his arms. Ignoring her soft call of his name, he got dressed and drove away. The roads were mostly empty that late at night. Only a few scattered cars here and there. He drove down familiar streets, trying to figure out what he would say to me. When he saw me, maybe he'd apologize a little, bring some gifts. He hadn't decided yet. When James had already returned there, it took him a while to unlock the door. The moment it opened, he was greeted by a hollow emptiness. He walked a few steps in and felt something underfoot. When he looked down, he saw it was the broken clay figurine from that day. Panic flickered across James's face. He stepped inside and called out my name, Mary, his voice echoing loudly. But the apartment was silent. No one answered. Everything inside still looked exactly as it had the moment we'd argued. And I left, time had seemingly frozen there. His chest tightened with a dull ache. This time it was real. I had broken up with him for good. By the third day in City S, a video of my rejected proposal had been secretly recorded and uploaded to TikTok. Strangely, it went viral. Millions of likes. The comments were flooded with hate. People were tearing me apart. Someone even gave me a nickname online. The desperate, clingy chick. Oddly, I wasn't upset. I was actually a little excited, just as I was about to call my senior. She called me instead. Right on cue. Marry Your Fame came just in time. Our new game is about to launch. And you've brought us built-in traffic. I've already told the team to accelerate production on the game featuring your desperate, clingy chick character. Tons of people are gonna check it out. Some to call you brainless, others to sympathize. Either way, they'll watch. We're going to save a fortune on marketing. I barely managed to hide my grin. I teased her this traffic came from my heartbreak. I'm still hurting here. Could you have a little sympathy? She snorted, fine, fine. I'll take 1/3 of the saved marketing budget and deposit it straight into your account. I immediately perked up. Thanks, boss. After a bit of banter, she eventually brought up James. You really didn't like him at all. Come on, he's good-looking, great body, attentive in bed. What woman wouldn't like him? I let out a long sigh. But he's dirty now. He's not good enough for me anymore. She burst out laughing. That's what I like to hear. Let the video ride for a few more days. Once it's reached max exposure, we'll issue a statement and plug the game. After we hung up, I got a WeChat message from Sean. The video was posted by someone from the party. Do you want me to clarify? I replied instantly, don't touch it. Let it keep trending. I need the heat for the game launch. 2 days later, my senior had someone leak my position at the company and hint at the upcoming game release. Curious netizens swarmed the company's official page. You guys hired the desperate chick. She literally proposed in public. That's emotional blackmail. No matter the gender. Confessing or proposing in public when the other party's unwilling is just gross. She brought such bad press to your company. And you haven't fired her. Forget the game. Fired the desperate chick first. Negative hype is still hype. Our company was now completely on fire. Once the timing was right, my senior released a bombshell. Late one night, she had someone leak James's private group chat with his friends. Turned out, James had known about my proposal plans all along. He didn't stop me. In fact, he helped orchestrate the whole thing, inviting people to come watch me embarrass myself. Up close, public opinion flipped instantly. Netizens also dug into the imbalance between James's background and mine. Most people sided with the underdog. And suddenly the insults aimed at me dwindled. Simultaneously, our company reposted the old video James's friend had shared. The one of him and Zoe reuniting after a long separation. The setting identical to my proposal. The date also the same day. Realizing they'd been manipulated, the angry mob turned on James and Zoe. They tracked down both of their accounts and flooded them with insults. Scumbag and home wrecker appeared in every comment. Eventually, both James and Zoe deactivated their accounts. As for me, the victim in this whole mess, the game I was in charge of got downloaded like crazy by curious users. From start to finish, I walked away with a perfect win in this entire drama. James was ordered to leave the country to lay low. His older brother had squeezed him out of the successor position in the family business. No one cared what happened to him. Meanwhile, I'd been busy in City S for the first few months. Once things finally slowed down, I took a short trip to Ching and Bay to relax. The fiber of the song is amazing, right? I love Sandy Lamb's voice. The voice came from a cheerful young guy who had just approached me. He had fair skin and a bright smile, totally not my type. When he tried to strike up a conversation, I casually gestured at him with random hand signs. He froze. Wait, are you mute? I smiled and nodded. The poor guy immediately started sweating and walked away in a panic. Amused, I leaned back and kept enjoying the music, feeling relaxed. But not long after, someone else sat down across from me and placed a glass of golden pear martini, my favorite, on the table. As I raised my hand, about to make a gesture to reject it, I heard a lazy chuckle from the private booth above. I looked up. It was Sean. He wore a crisp white shirt, leaning casually against the railing. The top 2 or 3 buttons were undone, giving him the vibe of a flirtatious playboy who'd been through too many romantic games. With a lopsided grin, he said, "If signing is too tiring, just take a sip." I didn't reply. I picked up the drink and spoke first. "Even if I'm done with James, that doesn't mean I'm considering you." Sean immediately shot back. "What's with all that considering crap? Don't act so high and mighty." The first thing that bastard ever said to me when he met me was, "Want to be mine? And now you think it sounds dirty." Sean had been my senior in college, 1 year ahead of me. He had a sharp tongue and a wilder streak. The first time we met was at the campus pool. I was trying to learn to swim in peace during finals week, hoping the pool would be less crowded. I couldn't swim at all and ended up almost drowning. He pulled me out of the water. As I was catching my breath, just about to thank him, he gave me a once-over and said, "Wanna be mine?" I was stunned. He added matter-of-factly, "I'll pay you. Just pretend to be my girlfriend." Back then, I hadn't started the studio with my senior yet. I didn't care about money. I cursed him out right then and there. Keep dreaming. And after that, every time I saw him, I insulted him again. That went on until he left the country, and we lost contact. Years passed later after I started dating James. He brought me to a friend's dinner gathering, and I saw Sean again. Still the same guy. Even with James right there, he flirted with me behind his back. He already had his own white moonlight. He wasn't someone to love. He wasn't even someone worth wasting time arguing with. I still remember standing in that cramped little bathroom, the light falling on his furrowed brows, making his handsome face look almost sincere. Time really does wear people down. Even dogs learn to speak human eventually. But I don't like dogs, so I rejected him again. No, I love James. He never brought it up after that, and I treated him like a stranger. When James said in the group chat that if I ever mentioned marriage, he'd dump me, Sean was the one who responded sarcastically, "If you're going to break up, can you at least give me a heads up?" He even worried I wouldn't be able to walk away. And after Zoe came back and got involved with James, Sean made a whole PowerPoint slideshow about it and sent it to me. Now that I had moved to City S, he followed me there too. Even with only 2 days off a week, he was always circling around me. I raised an eyebrow and tilted my head. "You like me?" Sean nodded. "What exactly do you like?" I asked. His gaze moved from my face to my chest, then down to my legs. I stared at him speechless. "Seriously, that's shallow." Sean paused as if recalling something, then suddenly laughed. "Okay, fine also. The way you paddled in the pool back then when you couldn't swim. That was oddly charming." I was about to cuss him out when he, "And you're really beautiful. I'm physically attracted to you in a very dangerous way." The first time he saw me, he said, "I just knew I wanted to die in your arms." I rubbed the goosebumps on my arms. "So to sum it up, you're just a horny bastard who wants to sleep with me." Sean said nothing. Then Sean nodded. Under the dim lighting, his silhouette looked even more seductive. His tall frame, handsome face, every little movement laced with effortless elegance. For once I didn't curse him. Instead I nodded back, and "So wanna be mine?" Sean was stunned for a second. Then his face flushed a deep red. He nodded again, but this time a little more restrained. "Are we starting tonight?" I brought him back to my place in City S. That very night, I treated him like a dog. He accepted everything with joy. I wiped the sweat from his forehead, thoroughly enjoying his services. When we were both worn out, he pulled me into his arms and whispered, "I'm pretty sure I can't live without you." Truthfully, I didn't love Sean that much. But he was presentable, and he had a much better sense of how to serve someone. than James ever did. Sure, sometimes he still acted like an untrained mutt, but I was generous enough to let those things slide. A magnanimous woman knows when to ignore the insignificant. For example, when Zoe added me on WeChat and announced her relationship with James. In her moments, I didn't care. Sean, unwilling to lose, begged me to take a photo holding hands with him. He sneakily posted it, and even tagged James in the comments. When I saw it, I laughed. I wasn't mad at all. I actually liked that he'd gone to such lengths, just to stir the pot for me later. I even reflected on whether I'd truly fallen for him. At that moment, The Legend of Zhejiang happened to be playing on TV, and I had a revelation. I just wanted to be the emperor. I loved the feeling of people going all out to win my favor. Especially Sean. After a year in City S, the branch office finally found a qualified director, and I was able to return to City A. The day I moved back, Sean was on a business trip. I dragged my suitcase alone and took a cab to the biggest mall in the city. That day happened to be Sean's mother's birthday. Having already met his parents, I wanted to buy a proper gift for her. As I stepped out of the store with the gift in hand, I ran into James at the corner. He looked stunned when he saw me. His eyes burned with intensity. Then he looked around, noticing I was alone. With a visible sigh of relief, he said, "Sean's family, they're out of your league. He already dumped you, didn't he?" I rolled my eyes. "That's none of your business. We've broken up. Everything between us is over." I tried to walk past him, but he grabbed my wrist. His dark eyes were filled with fake concern. "I just don't want to see you get hurt." I couldn't help but find it funny. The only one who ever hurt me was him. And now, post-breakup, he suddenly cared that someone else might hurt me. "So what?" I sneered. "You want us to get back together?" Sean never planned to marry, James pressed. "Today's his mother's birthday. If he really wanted a future with you, he would have brought you to the family dinner." But clearly he didn't. Before James could finish that sentence, a low male voice cut through the air. "James, have you no shame hitting on your bro's girl in public?" I looked up. It was Sean. He walked right past James and stopped at my side. One hand grabbed the gift box. The other slipped naturally around my waist. James's eyes darkened. "Oh, really? Who's stealing whose girl?" Sean's voice was lazy, mocking you, obviously. Then he leaned in close to me and murmured in my ear, "There are a lot of your favorite dishes at Mom's birthday dinner." Sean whispered, "You must be starving. Let's go home." I nodded, and he led me away. As we walked past James, Sean cast him a scornful glance. Without making a sound, he mouthed the words "loser" in James's direction. Then he pulled me closer and kissed my cheek. With a smile with a purposeful undertone, he said, "Babe, I'm not the kind of man who doesn't know how to love, let alone someone who can't even decide his own marriage." I couldn't stand the smug look on his face, so I brought up one of his old, "Want to be mine?" Sean's face immediately froze. I grinned. Wow, I really do have a good memory. By the second year of being with Sean, I turned 30. That morning, my mom called bright and early. "Mary, when are you and Sean getting married?" "Sean hasn't proposed yet," I replied, just like I did 2 years ago. She paused on the other end, then tried to test me. "Well, if it's not working, maybe it's time for a new boyfriend." "Mom, can I just not get married?" I argued with her for half an hour before finally giving up and hanging up the call. Sean wrapped his arms around me, looking pitiful. "Your mom totally misunderstood me. I did propose." I nodded and gave his head a perfunctory pat. But Sean wasn't about to let it go. He kissed my fingertips, slowly trailing up to my collarbone, burying his face into the curve of my neck. Then he looked up at me and started shamelessly rubbing against me, like a spoiled dog. When I finally lost my patience, he dropped the act and switched to a more aggressive strategy. "Mary, will you marry me?" His voice turned serious. "Why aren't you answering?" A long silence passed. Eventually, I leaned back against his chest. eyes closed and nodded faintly okay. I wasn't opposed to marriage, especially not with someone like Sean who was smart, good-looking, and rich. A good marriage could be an asset for a woman. And marrying someone like Sean, even if things didn't last forever, I could at least be sure I'd gain more than I lost. There's no such thing as a right choice in this world. All I can do is work hard and make sure the choice I make eventually becomes the right one.